I'm lucky enough to hear with Grant Atherton and also Tim Castro. So, Tim, do you want to tell me where you're from, sir?
Yes, from Port Macquarie Property Management and the Business Development Manager.
Yeah, wonderful. And Grant?
Yes, I'm from Open Doors Buyers Agent based in Newcastle and Lake Macquarie.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I think both of you probably agree that we've had so much interest in the regional market, and a lot of people are asking a lot of questions, one from the rental market and also from the investment, and how long this regional area is going to keep growing for. So, Grant, you're based, living currently now?
Yes, living in Lake Macquarie at Redhead Beach, beautiful Redhead Beach, beautiful spot.
And are you seeing similar things down in the Newcastle market that we're seeing up in Port Macquarie?
Yeah, absolutely. I think anything where there's low stock, high demand is obviously going to be driving the market higher. So it's absolutely, I think it's happening pretty much all across the eastern seaboard.
Yeah, okay, great. And then your view in the next sort of 1 to 3 to 5 years, what do you feel is going to keep happening?
I think things are just going to continue to stay strong. I think with, like I said, high demand, low stock, high vacancy rates is just going to continue to drive particular areas. I think especially regional areas. There's been talk even this year from NAB Bank that they're looking at 9% across Australia. Looking at that 7% increase in Sydney, Melbourne, and I think even the regional areas of like we've been talking about the eastern seaboard, Newcastle, Lake Macquarie, Port Macquarie, Central Coast, those areas are going to probably even grow higher. That's what I think is continue going to happen with those strong growth areas.
So, Timmy, I've been lucky enough to work with you for alongside you for 4 years. Have you ever seen the rental market like this?
No, I'd pretty much say it's historic. Never come across anything like this. I remember the first year that I started was sort of like coming into the last year off a property cycle. And then now what I'm seeing is the markets are just churning every 2.5 years of that rental market cycle as well.
Yeah. Look, I've had quite a lot of journalists contact me in relation to increased rents. And I think one thing the marketplace needs to know, and I think a lot of our owners are being very sympathetic. I think they went through COVID with their tenants. So, yeah, we're seeing some slight increase. But, if a place is possibly they were getting 500 and maybe they could get 550 now, we're still seeing a lot of owners only putting small rent increases of $10 or $20 at maximum. Some aren't even doing that. I think the real shift, Tim, and you could let me know if I'm right or wrong here, is that we're generally seeing if the property becomes vacant, that's when we're seeing the really large rent increases. Would that be right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, if there's a tenant in the property, then, as you said, owners went through COVID with the tenant as well. So they feel like there's still a bit of that around, which, in all honesty, we're 25 days without it. So, I guess once the property becomes vacant, then we look at seeing where it actually sits in the market, and that could be $150 more than what it was getting.
Yeah, I think, Grant, a lot of people talk about, the regional market, and they talk about, Sydney people here and pushing people out. I think, it's more than that. I think the fact is we're not seeing investors in the market. So if anything comes up, we're seeing our own occupier, and that might be a regional buyer already. That even might be someone from Armidale or Tamworth, or maybe we're seeing the Sydney person, or we're actually seeing someone that grew up in this area moving back. Would you think it's, probably a bigger problem that we're not seeing investors buy stock? Would you agree, Grant, what we're all seeing?
Yeah, I think obviously that's reflected in the low vacancy rates, because the stock of investment properties out there to rent is obviously quite low. And so I think there's all those factors. And I think obviously the amount of people that are coming back into Australia, Aussies that are moving back in, are either moving back into their own property that they own already, as well as they're looking for properties themselves. I think we underestimate the amount of people that are coming back into the country, needing places, needing shelter, and I think that's obviously driving the demand. And without those investors coming back into the market, which I'm starting to see a little bit more of, investors wanting to, they're obviously seeing the market move. They're interested, low interest rates, all those things that are all those key factors are helping investors see the value in property.
And is that why you're probably seeing some of them use a buyer's agent such as yourself, because they're struggling to find a property because they're competing with, the homeowner, which is a more emotional sometimes, so they need an expert to try and secure a property for them?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think most of the time investors are competing with the first home buyers, usually in that type of market. And so I think they're coming to a buyer's agent because they're needing that confidence to know that the right property that they are going to invest in is actually going to be good value for them, not only short term in regards to yield and rental return, but also the forecast of capital growth. And getting that right property is key. And I suppose from my perspective, from a buyer's agent, to have the eyes of an investor and to see a property in those eyes is different from the first home buyer. And so a first home buyer might see a property and value it as an okay property, but an investor could potentially look at it, and I look at it and go, this is fantastic as an investor. There's so much value add in this opportunity. There's so many I suppose, areas that could be used in regards to that. And so that's probably where, as a buyer's agent, I look at it from different eyes and can see the potential that I can bring confidence to an investor to show that.
Yes, about 4 years ago, I finished developing especially the unit market. I thought was at the end of the cycle, and I probably missed out on a little bit more, but it did keep going. And I went up and down the coast, all the way from Central Coast, and Central Coast had already moved a bit, Newcastle had moved a bit, and I went all the way up to Byron. And I picked Port because, I still think it's a bit of a secret. I mean, you've got the airport growing, the university, the hospital, the most, from Lighthouse into town, it's a 10-kilometre walk, and it would have to be up there in the most prettiest walks that, anywhere, on the coast of Australia. From that, you're seeing the cafe culture and the restaurant culture come back. And then the roads have now been changed. So, it's 4 hours door to door to Sydney. So there's been so many changes. So, mate, coming from Newcastle, and generally you see these markets flow, what are your thoughts on the Port Macquarie market from a buyer's agent point of view?
Oh, I think it's exactly what you said. I think people are obviously moving out of capital cities, whether that's Sydney, Melbourne, or even larger regional centres. They're moving out because they're wanting a lifestyle change. They're realising they can potentially work from home more, and obviously having the airport there, quick access to major capital cities, they can do that. Like you said, the university there, and potentially to be able to see Port Macquarie as a regional hub, which I think it's growing more and more into. It's really a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you want to move to Port Macquarie? It's absolutely fantastic place, like you described.
So Tim, you grew up here, and my cousins grew up in Southwest Rocks, and there was always the thought that as soon as they got to an age, they would take off and move out. And I think Port Macquarie had a little bit of that. And we talked about sort of a retirement village many, many years ago. I know it's changed now, but mate, growing up and your school friends, do you think now that, the new generation growing up are seeing that there is a possibility to build a career in Port Macquarie and have a life in Port Macquarie?
Yeah. I believe so. I was one of those kids that come 18, I was out of here and wanted to experience what it was like, out of Port Macquarie. But I think now, just with the way the infrastructure is, the university, what Port has to offer with the lifestyle, and as you said, the cafes and restaurants have now improved as well. So I think, growing up now is probably easier in Port Macquarie to find a long-term career rather than having to go out to the cities.
Okay, so this is going to go out to our investors and also our tenants. So before I move on to Grant, Tim, the rental market is strong. What are a couple of tips you're looking to secure a property in this market that you could give? What are you looking for in an applicant?
I guess being upfront and honest straight away, having your applications ready prior to viewing the property is going to assist you tenfold. With the overwhelming number of inquiries coming through for each property, just being prepared, having everything ready. When you come to an open home, be there on time. It is like an interview to try and get the property. So being well prepared for everything would be the first tip.
Yeah, wonderful. So, Grant, basically we've got you online today because we're looking to work with you closely, because we're getting quite a few of our clients that might be based in Sydney or Melbourne or wherever they are, and they haven't been able to secure a property. Mate, why do people use a buyer's agency, and how does it work working with you, Grant?
Yeah, well, obviously, buyers agents are becoming more and more popular as people are becoming more and more time poor. And especially if they're living outside the area, it does make it quite difficult to source and secure the right property. And so buyers agents are getting more and more used for that reason. And so not only from a time poor, out of area perspective, but the access that buyers agents have to properties that are not always available to the general public. So pre-market properties, off-market properties. We have sources that are sending us properties all the time that we're able to access. We're able to move on quickly. I mean, perfect case was last week for an investor client. Had been looking. This property came to me on a Monday. I was able to convince the agent to show us through on Wednesday. It was a great investment property, perfect for what we were looking for. We were able to put an offer in on Thursday and exchange on Friday before the open house on Saturday. And so the speed that buyers agents are able to work with is also a real key to making sure that we secure not just any property, but the right property, because the right properties are the ones that do go quickly.
You make such a good point, Grant. I'm always talking to clients. If you're looking to secure a property, the same thing, a bit like Tim, I still think a lot of buyers don't have this built up that they can't trust a real estate agent. But if you have a really good relationship with, obviously buyers agents do with their local agents, that really, really helps. Of course, you need to be ready and speed. And even in a strong market, that vendor possibly could have gone to the open on Saturday. They possibly could have got more. But as I always say, it's always about money. What you're able to do is say to that vendor, well, you know what, you don't need to risk this open. You can actually sell this property now. And the vendor knows maybe they could have got a little bit more, maybe they would have got a little less, but that security of knowing that they've got that sale, they can move on with their life. And that's what you gave that vendor. Would you agree, Grant?
Oh, absolutely. And there's some vendors that don't want to do open houses. They don't want the hassle of people trudging through and groups lined up outside their house. Some people don't even know that they want their house. They're actually putting their house on the market. And so those off-market opportunities do come to buyers agents quite regularly. I get probably 3 or 4 every day that agents are sending me for those reasons, that they're wanting to, whatever the reason might be, they're wanting to move that property quickly, and they're happy with a good, solid offer. And my, I suppose, hard in doing this is, especially in this market, I say to my clients, I can't guarantee I'm going to get you a great deal, but I'll guarantee that you're not going to get ripped off and you're not going to pay crazy money. And so that's one of the things that I can help with.
I did a quick video this week and I said, look, you're going to have to pay more than you would have had to pay 3 months ago, even maybe more than you paid yesterday. But don't get caught up in a frenzy. And there's a big difference, isn't there? You know, that we're seeing some crazy results that even in a strong market don't make sense. And I believe, especially if you're speaking to the people with experience, is that, yeah, you might need to be a little bit aggressive, but you don't need to be crazy. And there's some properties you need to walk away with because, the person you're competing with is just, they've got an open checkbook, yeah?
Absolutely. I went to an auction just before Christmas and the property went for about $80,000 over the top asking price, the top guide. And the auctioneer came to me afterwards. He said, "You're never going to get that property." She was going to pay whatever it was going to do to cost her. And I said, "Oh, you could have told me that before we started. That would have been helpful for probably her and me."
And Tim, from a rental point of view, what I'm excited about seeing in Port is that about 12 years ago, the development market didn't go too well in Port, and we saw the unit high-rise multi-level buildings cease, and they haven't been in the market for quite some time. And a lot of people are talking about stock, but Sovereign Hills, the last 2 land releases were sold really quick. And I know, Tim, you work with a few buyers agency investors groups. There are a few investors in those groups. And are you excited by seeing that a few high-rise developments have actually, being marketed at the moment and about to enter back into the Port Macquarie market? And in 12 to 18 months, with especially Lake Cat Eye down at Rainbow Beach, that we will see a new supply come back to the market?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, if we can continue to keep that going, that would be ideal. And hopefully there's some developers and so forth out there that can, make that happen. But yeah, no, there's a few coming on, and yeah, definitely 12 to 18 months should be exciting to see what will be, I guess, replenished stock. And also, you know, it will attract another new market as well, especially with prices and so forth.
Grant, I was advising a dear friend of mine, and actually his daughter found a property before all this sort of happened, maybe October, November last year. Anyway, the property didn't sit exactly. They thought it was an approved granny flat. The granny flat didn't find to be approved. We still think it made sense at that value. They chose not to go ahead. Since then, the market sort of jumped, and that was probably 8. It's now probably worth 9. Anyway, the dad, who's been around for a long time, he rang me and said, mate, like, this has got to stop. We're going to see a big correction. Like, what do I tell my daughter to do? And my advice was, you know, if you buy the place, and even if you've got to pay $950 today, maybe in a year it might be worth $850. Like, that could happen, but again, it's going to be worth 1 down the track. You know what I mean? It's going to rise again. But if it goes from $950 to $1,050,000, maybe your daughter will be priced out and never get into the market. Do you have similar sort of advice with what's going on at the moment to people going, do I buy now or wait? You know, every cycle does correct at some stage. So your thoughts?
Oh, absolutely. And I think people are saying, oh, I think it'll drop off. I think it'll go crazy. I mean, 9 months ago, they're predicting a 30% drop in housing value. I think potentially it might slow, as in level off a little bit. It's not going to drop. But I think my hashtag at the moment is you snooze, you lose, in the sense that if you keep thinking, and wait the 3 months, just in Newcastle, Lake Macquarie area, in the last 3 months, property prices grew 5.2% for single dwelling properties. And so on a $700,000 house, that's $35,000 already that you've missed out on, or you have to pay more for. And I'd say it'd be very similar in the Port Macquarie area as well. And so I hear a lot of people saying, oh, I'll get back to you, I'll just have a reconsider. And at the same time, I think not just buying any property is going to be the right answer, but buying the right properties in the right locations with ticking the right boxes is going to be the best investment that you can make.
Yeah, and forget about what the market does. If you make the wrong choice on a property, or you need to change over, by the time you pay stamp duty and then stamp duty again and pay agents cost, you know, you're looking at about, you know, $100,000. So it's a massive changeover. I mean, about a year and a half ago, I remember saying, look, I can't see what would drive this, you know, the next boom. But, you know, we didn't know that COVID was going to happen, and we didn't know interest rates were going to come to 2%. The unit market in Sydney is still weak. I mean, everyone knows that. The vacancy levels are quite high. But Australia has shown, you know, we are the lucky country. When you look around the world, in America, 5,000 people dying a day, and UK and everything else, you know, we don't have planes landing here. And I think, you know, if the interest rates stay at where they are, and we start seeing Air China land, and we start seeing, you know, British Airways and, you know, USA Airlines, United Airlines landing in Australia, I mean, we could see the real perfect storm of another big hit to the market, and it'd be, who knows what could happen in the next boom. Your thoughts? Absolutely. Start seeing international travellers back in Australia, and we see the Asian students. I mean, that's got a huge impact on the Sydney market. But once they all come back, I mean, who knows where we'll be? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think it's obviously growing without that already at crazy rates, and so to add that in is going to obviously help those unit complexes and the vacancy rates increase there. So it's going to obviously help that side of things, which is just going to push the rest of the market up as well. And so in regards to units as well, I think obviously those inner city units have taken a bit of a hit. But I know across the coast, from Port Macquarie, even Coffs Harbour, Newcastle, the good quality units that are close to the beach, that are good access to all those things, are still actually having good value and good returns.
Yeah, I've been watching the Coogee market in particular, and there's been some really big unit prices and same river. All right, guys, well, we'll finish off today. I mean, my name's David Gray from Ideal Property Group. We've got Grant Atherton there as our buyer's agent we're looking to work with exclusively, and also Tim Castro from Port Macquarie Property Management. I think the important thing for our clients to understand why we've got the three is that I think we need a one-stop shop when it comes to property. You know, the old days of just managing your property, I think, are gone. We need people that have actually got experience on the ground, that we can help build wealth for our clients. There's obviously two ways we can build wealth. We can save money, and, you know, a lot of our clients were paying 3 or 4%, and we've helped them down, especially with Jason Sherman at Ideal Finance, and they're now getting 2s and 2.19s. And then, I think, Grant, one, I know you can get source opportunities, but mindset's a big thing. And working with a buyer's agency, a lot of people put it on their bucket list and then they don't get there, or they do 3 opens and then they give up and they get busy, kids' sports. But working with you actually helps them reach their goals. So would you believe that the personal development, the mindset's a big part of working with someone like yourself, Grant?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's the thing. I think from a perspective where you don't have the expertise, you're not sure of the market, you're not sure of all those things, why not get an expert in that can help you and build that confidence in helping you buy the right property, not just any property, but the right property is going to set up your investment portfolio and continue to grow it further and further and further.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for watching the webinar, guys. If you've got any questions, please feel free to reach out to any of us. We'd be happy to help you. And Grant and Tim, once again, thank you so much. Have a good day, guys. Thank you. Cheers.